Okay, hi everyone. My character is done. I got him into Horizon Worlds last night, and he looks pretty good. It's nice, like looking at him in virtual reality and kind of like seeing him look down at you. Very creepy. Uh, just to talk style really quick, you can kind of see I'm going for a, grungy kind of realistic, somewhat style. It might be fun to do more of like a Ghibli or anime style in the next world that I do, but right now, I kind of want to push more of the realistic side of things. So with that said, this is what he ended up looking like. This is just a render of him in Keyshot, so you can see like shadows and highlights on him. Okay, let's jump into ZBrush. And well, let me show you his UVs. So this is his UVs. So if I zoom in on his beautiful face, that's what it looks like. That's the texture map. This is his plant body, right? So let's take a look at them because we're going to talk about how to do texture. So how do we go from, just a white blank this to a finished texture? Okay, so let's focus on the head. So I'm going to check that up. I'm going to delete lower, I'm going to delete hidden, and okay. So how do we poly paint inside of ZBrush to get our textures? Okay, so this is going to be our starting, and we're going to try to get something like that at the end. I'm going to do this quick. I'm going to try to do it in 10 minutes or so it's not going to look as good as this, but the process will be the same. So hopefully you can pick that up. Okay, so let's start off by deleting our poly paint. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is what we do with like real life miniatures. If we were painting statues or miniatures in real life, we're going to take that same step, that same process. And what we're going to do is something called a wash. And the way we do it inside of ZBrush is if we scroll down here, we have a tab called masking. Masking. And if you look under here, we have a whole bunch of mask by cavity, mask by depth, normals, smoothness, mask by peak and valleys. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on mask by cavity. Right off the bat, you can see that it's going to mask all that, like all the cavities on the model. So if I invert my mask and then I fill it with a color, I'm not going to fill it with completely black or completely white. We want to save those for our really dark spots or our really like highlights, right? So we're going to find something that's kind of dark and we're just going to fill it. Um, and right away you can see that like, okay, this is my poly paint. When I turn my poly paint into my texture, I'm going to grab all that detail that I sculpted into my character. So this is like a great start. And if this was like a miniature in real life, we painted the whole miniature black and then we grabbed a rag and we wiped it off. Like the only thing that paint would be left in would be the crevices, right? So this is our first pass, which is going to be a wash. Next, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to paint um, the tones of the face based on like heat. So, for example, like the forehead is going to be yellow, the cheeks and the eye area are going to be red, the mouth is going to be blue, the chin's going to be blue, right? So we have like these heat zones. We're also going to be thinking of like skin, the underneath the skin, underneath the base color, what the skin might look like. And then that's how we're going to paint our first pass. So we do that by we choose a standard brush, and we have different kind of strokes we can do with our brush, and one of them is called a spray can or a spray. And then we're going to choose a really cool alpha that comes with ZBrush, which is this kind of like veiny texture, right? So now if I come down here and I choose like a red, if I just make my brush a little bigger, if I just spray this on my character, you can kind of see he gets this like kind of like under the skin kind of layer happening, right? And this is like a great way how to paint skin. But that's what we're going to use right now. So we're going to do this kind of like this heat or this kind of like light kind of like heat pass based on different zones of the face. Um, so yeah, so okay, so let's say he has some kind of like red flowing in his eyes, some like blood flow in his eyes. We got a little bit into his nose. And again, I know he's a skull, so he's not going to be like skin, but he does have some kind of like skin floating around somewhere, right? We can even say like his cheeks might have a little bit into it too, right? Okay. And a little bit there. Okay, now just to blend, we're just going to do like a quick scrub over everything just to kind of blend it in. Okay, next we're going to want to do is the blue. And this is going to be more like the mouth area, the chin. So we're going to keep this kind of like the bags under his eyes, or like your bags are sometimes blue. So we're going to throw like a little blue in there, a little bit there. Basically, anywhere you think that like the blood flows or the light, the way it bounces through the skin or the epidermis level, right? I think that's what it's called. Okay, so a little bit on his nose. Kind of come up here on the ridge. Okay. Okay, next we want to do is yellow. And yellow is going to be, like I said, where there's like, you know, not a lot of blood flow, like the forehead. So right in the front here, and we're just going to kind of, again, just blend everything together. And this is going to be like, I don't know if they call it like modding. This is our modded, or modden pass, something like that. Okay, so these are like the temperature zones. Okay, so next we want to think about is the base layer, or the base layer. Also too, there are also, I just want to point this out. There's more than just cavity over here too, right? So we could also smooth by like, we could also mask by like smoothness. So if I click this button, and we could adjust the range and find all this stuff. So if I invert this, and I'm just gonna drop my opacity down. I'm gonna just pick like a nice kind of like grayish kind of color. If I hit fill, let's do 2 clicks. Now I want to invert it, and now I'm gonna fill. Okay, we kind of get that nice like bone fill right there. We could also go like peaks and valleys. We can see what peaks and valleys gives us. I kind of brought it into the face. Let's see if I change my adjustments. Too much. It's not bad. What if I pull it down more? Okay, let's go with that. So if I invert, let's make this a little bit darker. Let's see what that gives us. That's not bad. Okay, so let's talk about, now we want to do like the base. And that kind of was like a base, but we can do a base again, staying on that same brush. Let's choose like a nice, like kind of like grayish color for his skin. I'm just going to turn my opacity back up. I'm kind of just throw this back down again. I'm kind of just blending everything together. Now, keep in mind too that I'm trying to do this under 10 minutes. So the original took me about an hour or so, 2 hours to do the whole model. Okay. All right, perfect. So let's say this is pretty good now, right? Say we're happy with this as our skull, as our color. The final stage is going to be doing shadows and highlights. We're going to do our own shadows and highlights, kind of like, you know, bake it into the texture. So if I choose a black, I'm going to remove my alpha. I'm going to go back to my dots. I'm going to drop my opacity down. So yeah, perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to start to paint in some shadows. And I'm going to work myself more detailed as I go. But right now I just want to be like kind of broad, right? So I know there's going to be some like shadows in his eyes. So I could just throw it in there. Now he's going to have some shadow in his nose, right? I know like this part might be in shadow. We're probably going to get some shadow happening under here. Same thing on the other face, on the other side of his face. Some shadow there, right? So that's pretty good. Now it's like, I would just say if I want to zoom in, I want to start to work a little deeper now. Let's take this part of the nose, for example, right? So I can start to come in here, I can start to paint this. I'm going to start to fill in those crevices. Right? And now if I come back with my highlight, well, let me just get, there we go. Now if I come back with my highlight, let's choose white. And I start to just paint on the edge here. And I zoom out, you can see that now that part really sticks out of his nose, right? It's really noticeable. So I'm gonna do that, or I did do that all over the face. I basically went in and I painted my own shadows, my own highlights. That was my final step in the process of creating my character. So then at the very end, we have something that looked like this. And yeah, and I'd use that same process all over his body to do every single piece, including the plant. Like so, for example, if I zoom in, yep. So if I zoom in, like, oh look, you can see the vein there, right? If you zoom in here, you can see the vein kind of going down. Now I could do a projection of like actual plant, but I chose to just paint the whole thing. So okay, so that was how that is how I poly painted the whole character. Again, I'm just trying to keep it quick. So stay tuned for more. What I'm gonna do next, I'm probably gonna do a quick video just showing you what it looks like in Horizon, and I think I'm gonna publish the world so people could go in and kind of treat it like a sandbox, a place where I can like dump my models, check them out, make sure they're working correctly, and everything's holding up. So, okay, thank you. Stay tuned for more.